Hi, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business Team. I'm here at the Hope to Hope conference with my beautiful co-host,
Kristi Bridges from One Moment Wiser.
We are excited to start session number
18.
I cannot believe we've already had 17 other sessions for this conference, and it has been amazing.
Yes.
So far.
Fantastic people.
Our next guest, thank goodness for technology. I'm going to be very positive with this. Thank the Lord for technical issues so that we can learn to be patient and
for alternatives. Because when one thing doesn't work, we try something else.
That's right.
Thanks, Rip, for your patience too.
So the next guest is a friend of Kristi's, and she's going to introduce him and talk about some of the things that he does. I'm super excited to meet him. So, Kristi?
Sure. So we have Rip Kastaris with us. And a couple of years ago, my friend Susan and I went to the Greek festival in Tulsa. We were looking for something to do. There weren't any outdoor concerts, and Greek food sounded really good. Who doesn't like baklava, right? So we went to the Greek festival, and when we were walking along, I passed an artist who had amazing paintings of B.B. King and Bob Marley and musicians I hadn't met yet. And I am a blues junkie, let me tell you. I love blues and music of all kinds, and his art was phenomenal. And then beside that same art that was just so musical and flowing, there was iconography. There was the traditional, like something I would have studied in humanities in college, art from, that belonged in the cathedral. And he did both of those. And so we started talking and talked for probably about an hour before my friend was like, they're serving dessert. Let's go. And pulled me away, but we've stayed mildly in contact ever since because I just really enjoy watching his art progress. So Rip, you just was it last year that you did the mural in St. Louis?
Yes, that was let's see, that was a fall project, and it lasted until it started to snow. But we got it done. Actually, we switched to oil paint at one moment in time to get the last colors on there. But it went from like late October until January 4th or something like that.
You had to have been freezing in St. Louis, Missouri, but you were posting online so that I could sit in my warm little office drinking my hot coffee, watching this painting develop. And there are so many details on this painting, and I love the way, you guys will have to go to his page and see this, but at the bottom of the painting, which is a mural with fall colors and fall nature, at the bottom of the painting are bicyclists that are riding along in St. Louis, and their shadows come off the painting onto the brick to give it just such a beautiful 3D impact. And I've sent those pictures to just a zillion people because your technique and your vision is just amazing.
Well, thank you. That was in my own backyard. We had to do a good job on it, but it was a lot of fun to do, and it helped promote a part of St. Louis that needs a little boost right now, and it encouraged people to get outdoors, get away from their small screens, meet each other even within their own family, get more fit, and enjoy the creation outside. So it was a competition. I was honored to have the program or the idea that they liked the most. I called it Confluence because 600 miles of Rails to Trails will be completed in the next, I think, 5 to 10 years in St. Louis. And it's one of only 3 cities in the world that has a bridge that goes over a major river. And I thought that was the right message about strengthening the community in Carondelet, which is the neighborhood that program is in. It was called Murals on Broadway, and that was the 8th one.
Wow. And I love bicycling. And you said 600 miles of.
Yes. They've got a couple of hundred now, but they're really looking at St. Louis like an island that has, all these people coming to it. And really, St. Louis is set up almost like an island because the Mississippi goes down, and it's the only place between Minnesota and the Gulf of Mexico where the river actually turns back on itself and goes almost backwards from south up to north, but it definitely goes east and west. It's the only place where it really goes east and west, and it creates a great lake in an area called Alton, where bald eagles hang out, and there are bluffs, and fall colors are beautiful, and then wraps around to about 6 o'clock where I am in South St. Louis, if Alton is at 12 o'clock. And so you've got both sides of the river. You've got music on both sides of the river. You've got, a lot going on, a lot of great artists, and a lot of recording of music, and a lot of celebrating of a great culture of music there. There are so many small brick houses where you're in arm's length of masterful soloists and great blues players and, just wonderful musicians. Every time you go to a new place, you see, I can't believe there's another great band in town. But it's one of the blessings of being from from this very special city in the Midwest on the mighty Mississippi River.
Wow. What an inspirational environment.
Well, I think it's an honor to meet you, sir. I just want to say I am excited that you had the time and made the time. Really, you made the time to come on the Hope to Hope conference. I want to know how you got started. Like, where did you come from? What caused you to know that you had this great talent?
I don't know if anybody really picks art. Art kind of picks you. You get picked up in it like you get picked up in a wave when you're playing on the beach in shallow water. And once I tell people art isn't a career, it could be a disease. But for me, it started in kindergarten. I remember because I complained about not having white paint. And and my teacher was really surprised. She looked down and she said, "Euripides, you have 6 other colors. Why would you need white as well? Why don't you paint with what you have?" And I remember I was I don't know why, but I said, I can't mix the lighter colors unless I have the white. And so all the other kids were napping at their little rest time on their mats. She told me, she said, "Rip, you can come with me. You don't have to sleep." And that's when I realized you could get out of all kinds of stuff. So
I love it.
got out of the nap. I was a fidgety kid. I did not want to nap, but she said, "You don't have to nap. You can come with me." We went into a supply room, and she said, "Because you asked for the white, you can help me mix up this white tempera paint." She had this powdered tempera, and we mixed a certain amount with water, and we got it to be just the right consistency, and it went on the palette. And I guess I was off and running. But I guess just because she made a big deal out of it, I remember that in kindergarten that was kind of a thing. And it seemed like, I don't know, teachers are always using art as in the more progressive teachers tend to use art, poetry, music to enhance what they're teaching. And I had a very ambitious, I do remember in 2nd grade that my art was taken as samples for the next class. In 4th grade, I had a very ambitious teacher, and she made these slideshows where you'd hear a bell or a beep, and then you advance the slide, and she had a story from Brazil called The Red Shoes, and if you were good at illustration, you didn't have to do your math work because she was on a deadline.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
So I guess I have very early memories, but I was very fortunate. I had high school art teachers that saw some promise in what I did. There was a program at Washington University for 16-year-olds. So you could go your last 2 years of high school to a university, one of the best art schools in the country, draw directly from the model, see the work that was being done by the undergraduate and graduate students. And they made sure that I got into that program while I got a scholarship to go to Parsons School of Design as well in New York. My parents moved to New York, and it kind of worked out that I stayed in St. Louis and went to Washington University, which was an awesome experience, both in the arts, but also in all the other. I never checked what level class was, whether it was some of the other, history, biology, English, whatever we needed to take. I always asked upperclassmen who really got under your skin when you took their class, because I found that if you just took classes that were really interesting, didn't really matter what the number was on it, that if I could be interested and it was something you could get passionate about, or it didn't really matter, the difficulty level that the book said. But school, WashU was a wonderful art experience, and I had already been there 2 years as a high school student. And then I got a job in advertising 2 years before I graduated, and it came from volunteering. My roommate had a sister working on her master's degree in social work, and she had created an agency called Kids in the Middle that helped kids that were in the families of parents that were divorcing. And that agency was set up to help those kids not feel guilty about what was happening with their parents, and also not blame themselves and not be used as pawns by both parents. All those things were laid out, and I did some pretty cool black and white pen and ink illustrations, put a lot of time into it. It was a wonderful opportunity to work with someone who owned an ad agency, and we worked on it together, and he offered me a job 2 years before I got out of school at WashU. So I just felt like I was kind of like batters up a little bit ahead when it came to the next step in my art career. And so when I got out of out of college, had a really great experience there. I was the king of the all-nighters. Stayed up more than anybody else did. The lights were always on. I was responsible for the saws and all the equipment in the shop, which was one of my work study jobs. And I graduated at the top of the class. I spoke at the graduation where I said, we've often confused the people that clean up the art school, because on a number of occasions they've left the trash and they've taken our art projects. Or maybe it's the other way around. They've taken our art projects and they left the trash. That's what it was. But it was a great school and a great experimental time. And I there again, I was going to get married a year after I was in art school, and thought I would start my own business. I knew that I needed to raise in order to take care of a family, and I was actually helped by my the agency that I was working at, and it was a little more dramatic than that, because I started taking on some freelance jobs as an illustrator. My job as an art director was more of a designer, and everything's designed. Everything is designed. Everything that you wear, the pen that you use, it's all designed, but not everything is illustrated. Illustration is much more like photography, that it's bought especially for that. So it's a lot easier to get a job as a designer, and there's a lot more people that need that. So when I got out of school, it was easier to get a job as a designer, but I was picking up freelance jobs for Anheuser-Busch or whomever as an illustrator, and I had been up all night, and my boss came into work and said, "You have been up all night. Now, what are you going to be able to do for me today?" And I said, No, I'll be fine, really. He says, "But really, Rip," he says, "what do you really want to do with your career and your life?" And I said, "Well, someday I'd really like to be an illustrator." And he said, "You could be an illustrator this afternoon," he said.
Awesome.
But it wasn't quite that mean, because they were a bunch of psychologists, and they had worked for, they started this agency out of like, a self-help, employee assistance program. So they were all very good communicators and all that. And they actually created a program with me that they would fire me, but I would still do some freelance work for them. And here, I made more than my salary that I would have made there, and only worked part time, and got a bunch of other clients. And I was off to the races, with doing freelance work. And we had a very vibrant city in St. Louis with Ralston Purina and all the cereals that they make, and Energizer Eveready batteries, and so many things. Winchester firearms, also Olin Brass, many companies that are no longer there anymore. Monsanto, there was big agencies that had agencies in New York and St. Louis, or Chicago and St. Louis. And I was really fortunate to start getting very, very busy, first as a designer, but then switching up to illustration jobs. And at that time, I was so happy because, now all my work is, at least right now, I'm working on a huge year-long church project in the Byzantine style. And when I was getting this work, when I was just out of college, I would tell my friends I was so glad that my parents brought us from Greece to the United States, because if I was back in Greece, I'd probably be stuck doing churches.
And now you're excited about doing it.
People, well, while I say people change all the time, I guess maybe, we become more of ourselves over time, because I found that I don't know, I just realized that art has, after 10 years of doing advertising art, I felt as though it was just a half an inch deep, bring in the horses, bring in the girls, bring in the lights. Okay, we got the shot. The beer looks good. It was cool. Everything had a free sticker on the side. I don't know. It paled for me after going back to Greece and being in churches like the one in the city where I was born, where I was looking at a book of photographs. And when I commented how beautiful this book was and how complete, they said, "Yes, we came out with that book for our 1600th birthday." 1600th birthday. So that's how old the churches are in Greece, some of them, especially in Thessaloniki, where I come from. And it made me think differently about the images that we look at all day, and the images that we're told to look at, and the images that we choose to look at, and why Madonna, had hit singles for a while, but that the Madonna and Child has been a hit for thousands of years. Why is that? And why, when I got asked to do shows with other Greek artists at first, because of my culture and being part of the church and part of that social group. When I did certain subject matter that everybody seemed to respond to it, even that were non-Greeks. But I did an icon for my goddaughter because I really didn't know what else to do for her. I'm an artist. What do you do? I solve every problem I have with art. I need to make a contribution to my church. I make a piece of art. I need therapy. I make a piece of art. I need to make a living. I make a piece of art. I need to figure out how I'm going to draw or put in a piece of furniture or whatever. I make a piece of art. So it's kind of the way that I kind of connect with the world, and it just comes so naturally. But there was, over time, I really had not planned on being an artist that was climbing to 65 feet in the morning to paint Christ in a dome. I had not planned that for myself.
With a brush that's longer than you.
Yes.
I mean, that brush is enormous.
Well, I just, duct tape long sticks to them, and it works out fine.
Wow.
We were watching earlier, though, one of the videos Kristi was showing me of, like, you actually painting and this stick that she's talking about, the long brush. And I mean, just being honest, I am a princess. I want to point that out, Rip. I want to make sure you know that. But
I come from a culture that worships princesses. That's all good.
But I don't think I probably would have got out of kindergarten if I had to pass art class. There are artists and there are appreciators, and I have to fall in the appreciators category because I cannot draw a straight line. I can't paint a straight line. I can't even cut a straight line. And you were, I mean, a very, very long stick with the brush, painting tiny, fine little things. We were like in awe.
Totally smooth for probably a good 10 feet. It was just gorgeous. It was gorgeous. But you've actually, I'm going to take a pause for a second and say, you've said so many profound things that I don't want to run right by. You had, thankfully, insightful teachers who recognized how to keep you motivated and the talent you had. But you also, in college, I love that you knew art was your passion, but you also knew you wanted to get somewhere that was a sustainable life. And so you had to take these classes that a lot of people would have been, oh, what do I have to do to skate by? And you said, hey, what got under your skin? What inspired you? Because you knew that you could pass anything if it got your attention and held you for long enough to get through that test. It was something that kept you thinking. And you use those things, your history and things like that, to actually, I think, influence your art. And we've been talking for a couple of days with people who have been following a certain expected lifestyle, the certain, marriage is going to be this way and I'm going to be a lawyer and, whatever. And they've been derailed, but they've ended up regaining part of them because there was passion hidden there. There was some interest hidden there that had the ability to create something beautiful. And now they're doing that because, thankfully they were taken off track long enough to reconnect with it. And you actually started out knowing that was the way to follow. That was the way to keep going.
I definitely had that feeling, but I will also tell you that there was a lot of discomfort with that part of myself as well, there are so many kids that don't quite fit in that are good at art. It's another intelligence, and it tends to be one that is pursued by sometimes kids that don't have the way to articulate in other ways or express themselves. But I think that a lot of people can feel as though they're outsiders. And I did as a kid. I felt as though I was an outsider because my name was Euripides rather than Rick or Bob or Bill. We were from another place. My way of thinking about things and looking at things seemed to be different than other kids. And I was told that I needed to kind of like change and fly right to fit into school and to life and to what I should do. And I was really told to kind of not listen to my creative side and that passionate side. So I think it's always been a struggle, and I think it is for many, many people. Do I follow my still small voice, or do I do what's expected of me? Because good people live up to the expectations that society and their parents and their world and their wives and their kids have for them. But I think it takes a little insight and a little courage to step out of what's been done before, what's expected of us, and we have to ask ourselves some real serious questions in order to live up to our calling, because everyone has a gift. You know, you talked about not being an artist, but you are very gifted. And Rollo May says that anybody that's creative is firing on all 8 cylinders and making things happen. And I hate limiting the artist to the person with the pen or a brush or a camera. You know, we are all made in the image of a creator, and we can all be creative. So I like to demystify art. I really think that we all have a gift, and that's my message. If I were to have one, I want people to say, hey, if this kid that is not that serious or has possibly a little bit less of a stodgy way about himself when he's in church or when he's with the community or when he's around skills that some people only show with bow ties and a little bit more of a formality, I invite everybody to listen to what they like to do and to get their hands wet. If when I'm teaching them, I say, regardless of what the question is, the answer is keep cutting more paper or whatever.
Well, I have to say thank you for that, because thank you for like not being someone who puts everybody in the same box. I think that that's a very special gift in itself, that you can recognize different kinds of creativeness, because I'm not creative. I couldn't paint a picture that you would have any idea what it was. But my creative side is to take you and help you be on live video on this conference. That would be the other side. But you hit on something. You hit on something pretty major when you were talking about a good life and what was expected of you. I think the difference between a good life and a great life is what you've discovered, which is actually living to what you're created for, actually doing the thing that you're passionate about instead of doing the thing that was expected.
You know, someone who's been a big influence on me is Joseph Campbell, and he's got a quote that says, we have to let go of the lives that we're planning in order to receive the one that's waiting for us.
Oh, beautiful. We have to let go of the lives we're planning in order to receive the one
that's waiting for us.
Waiting for us.
Yes. And I think that's not unique to the artist.
No.
But it can be. But I think that like a lot of times we use sports as a metaphor for the agony of the human race and all those kind of things. And then we also often use art as a metaphor for resculpting ourselves or recreating ourselves or listening to our intuition. And so an artist can be an inspiration to people, because everybody knows what it's like to go back to the drawing board, Everybody knows what it's like to study and measure very carefully, and then to present to others and to be involved with engaging ideas or intriguing images. And I've been a student of that path where people create themselves all of my life, and been curious about why some people listen and become heroes and why others keep blinders on and continue to do. I think of life for some people as like a Greek dance where we're all holding hands and we've all got blinders on, and even the leader that's leading us has blinders on. And at some point we have to step out of that circle and take our blinders off and decide for ourselves, what is it that you want to do, or what is it that you feel called upon to do, and use a little of your own intuition and your own courage to follow, to have the courage to follow what interests you rather than what you're told to do. And when you first start that, you're afraid to do it, and you're told that you're making a mistake. So there's tension whenever somebody chooses to go the route of inspiration as opposed to duty.
Yeah. But like you said, in the Greek dance, if we're all in there in the circle with our blinders on, we're just running over each other.
Yes, we are. Or at best, they say if you're not the lead dog, your view never changes. Like,
yeah. What a view. Yeah.
Right. I want a great view, and the greatest views are on edges. They're in dangerous places, but we can't be so dangerous as to hurt ourselves or ruin our odds for being able to have our greatest outcomes. And so our lives then are works of art. They're rough pieces of stone that we would like to sculpt into David, but it's hard work, and we don't really have the patience to do it, but it takes, we want it to be a milkshake that's sweet, and goes down easy, but it's like the oldest beef jerky, and you have to really pound away and work on it on a daily basis without ending, with a very clear picture of what we want in order to go from the people that we are to the people that God has made us in spirit and inside that potentiality, to go from that acorn to that oak tree, to become that ballerina or that rock star or that writer or teacher or great mother or whatever it is that we've been given as a talent or a gift. We all have great talent. We all have a blueprint of a creator that has a spark of life within each person. You have to believe that there's that spiritual dimension of life where we all sense it, but we don't always act on it. We see it in others. We yearn for it, but we're not always ready to not hit the snooze button in the morning, because it takes more than anyone else is doing, more than your competitors are doing. You got to practice harder without witnesses. You have to spend more time. You have to bleed a little bit more. You have to miss a vacation that the other people are taking in order to go from good to great. And we're all capable of that, but I don't know if we're all willing to do that. And maybe it's fine to have a normal life, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a call to adventure in all stories, in all myths, in all we talk about it as a calling, even in faith and in religion, that there's something beyond us that we can listen to, we can see in ourselves, and that we can, if we're a little lucky, but if we're persistent, and if we are, and we don't even know, because it takes a long time for things that we didn't realize would someday be one of the dots that is connected for us to live a great life, not an easy life, but a great, full of passion and deeply connected. That's what people really need. They really, in today's life, when everything is so easy, what people really need is not a faster car or a bigger bus. They need to have experiences where they, I'm convinced of this, don't feel like a number in a system that's so large that they have no influence over it. That's what mechanisms and information technologies and all this has done. What most people yearn for is a connection that's deeper with their kids and their grandparents, and to feel as though their families make a difference from generation to generation, and a sense that they're working towards something that isn't just pushing paper, but is working towards some goal that is going to allow them to make a living, but will also leave a legacy someday. And you don't have to be an artist to do that at all. You can do that with great programming like you do, or gathering the right ideas together so that it's more special than if we just got together for tea. But that in itself, the choices that you've made and the ideas that have brought together bring more color and intensity and more clarity to that, as if it is a sculpture or a painting that has a positive message to it and tells a story. And that's another really wonderful thing about, my own heritage, is that it's always been about a story, and it's important to us that we feel like we're not alone, but that we are part of, a cosmic story, creative story, and then one that we can play a role in. And I mean, I'm just saying these things, but I think these things have come from my own frustrations with, being told that I wasn't or couldn't. My guidance counselor in high school told me that they didn't take people like me at Washington University.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad they did.
Yeah. And so when I go back to career day, she has to be the one that pins the badge on me. And I think, how sad that one sentence of discouragement if it can change a life in the wrong way, but that also means that one word of encouragement, which I always try to give to other people, to see the best in them, can also, like you guys do, be hope for them, so that it doesn't matter. Like, we are the ones that are creating the world that we live in. Everything that we talk about or touch or drive was someone's idea that hoped that he'd make life better for us. And then, so we always kind of see the blueprint in the thing that we're using, but we also have to realize that we come from a grand blueprint that is so much more divine than the kind of blueprint that we have for our home or our education or that, or our home, or any kind of thing that we drive or use. And I guess it's something that we don't always think about, but we have a sense of it in our quiet moments, and we have a feeling that we might be able to be a better ball player or a doctor or whatever that is, but we need to encourage kids to listen to that voice. We need to take steps to develop that in ourselves, and it's through that track, that path of developing our potential, and that of making a garden that our kids can grow up safely in, so that they don't get off track, that they can also have a great garden to grow in and develop their potential that makes us human beings rather than lower forms of creatures, and something that we really can make a difference for ourselves, our families, and our communities if we think about it the right way, and if we set it up properly as well.
So have you written your book yet?
Yeah, right.
You're telling of an epic adventure.
It is. Greek mythology is a circular journey. It's a 3-part script. It's at home, and then you go out, and you. I actually taught a class at the University of Missouri St. Louis based on this circular journey that Joseph Campbell talks about, but it's really based on stories from legendary, mythic, and historic Greek heroes. But then when he did his research, he found that story was true in all stories. Said even Christ doesn't do any miracles until he goes out into the desert for 40 days. And, he's asked God, he says, could I have something to eat? And God says, yes, you can have sand or rocks. And Jesus says, well, I guess I'll eat sand or rocks for 40 days then. But after he passes that test, which we all have to do, we can't say we're going to lose weight and not hurt a little bit. We can't say we're going to build a tower and not take the time to do it. Once we do that, then we survive and we get the survival prize. And as soon as we do that, the story goes that we get a phone call from back home that says, we need you here because we heard you're doing well. And we're in trouble. And the hero at that point, he says, well, I didn't really do that well, and I know I could get a couple more wins before I get home. So I'm gonna go home with a really high scorecard. And the hero always, his ego, he takes on more than he can chew, and instead of bringing home a bigger prize, he gets crucified or eaten or dismembered. He spends 3 days in the belly of a whale. He goes bankrupt. He gets kicked off the team, whatever. And at that point in this scheme of things, the way that the way that stories tell, that point, if we're willing to not try hard at that point, but fully surrender and ask for help, that there's divine invisible hands that come to us because of the effort that we had already put in, and because if there wasn't a little grace in the universe, that nothing would work right. And that person is helped to go back home. Unfortunately, he doesn't have like a big car or a lot of money, but he's got not only the experience of working hard and doing things, but the idea that through this process, he's ready to go on another journey again. And he tries to tell people at his village where he came from, and they go, "What? Like, you don't have a car, though. You don't have the money." And the gold that he's trying to transfer to people turns to ashes in his hands. And it doesn't matter, though, because he knows he's had that experience, or she knows that she or he has seen more and has found that they have become their own driver, their own mom, their own dad. They don't need to depend on all these people. They can make their own way. And then they're ready to go on another circular journey while other people can choose to have, a normal life that doesn't see things quite as clearly or on the edge, so that they can see those deeper parts of the universe. So I think that people that do that are like comets rather than planets. You say goodbye to everybody as you cross their paths. You go, I'm leaving, I'm going to see some beautiful things, and you do. But as you go out into deeper space where it's cold and dark, you say, I need the warmth of the sun again. And you go streaking back past all your friends that you left, say hi to them again, you whip around the sun, and you're ready to go. But it's a much more exciting path than it would be if we didn't follow our muse, if we didn't try things, if we weren't willing to be courageous, be a little heroic, and then find that we live under the same sun and the same wind that carried people that have come before us to do great things. My church just celebrated 100 years, and in 1927, they lost the whole church to a tornado that came through. It put such a big hole in the roof that they took the next 3 years to build a new one rather than fix that one. And they didn't even speak English. They had very low wage jobs. And so it's not really the dog in the fight. It's the fight in the dog. It's the clarity. It's the vision that a group has. And that's how artists and communicators can help their societies, is to show others a better way of doing it from an inspiration that can only come from something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
That's so
You inspire so much
Yes.
passion. I love that.
That is so good. We are running out of time, and I hate that because we could like listen to you all day.
Yes. You have to
I've
do it
talked
again
too
with
much.
us.
Anyway, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic, and I commend you for your smiles and your grace and your choices that you make and the ones that you encourage other people to make. And if I can ever help you with a little piece of art or something, I'd be glad to do so, because I believe in what you guys are doing.
Oh my goodness, you're so incredible. You are just so incredible. Please consider a book so that I can take you with me whenever I travel to read. And please and please let us do another interview with you. The conference is, the next couple of days, so that's not going to work out.
This time, but we do this every quarter.
But we do this every quarter, and we would love to hear more from you. You are incredible.
And we'd love to follow, we're encouraging all of our viewers to follow the progress of the cathedral that you're doing right now, and check out Rip's other work too.
Yes. I think Miss Connie posted in the comment how to connect with you, how to find, what you're doing and get to see your amazing pieces of art. But, they're pieces of passion, I think, more than even just the word art. I think they go so much farther, in a depth. Anyway, I have to stop talking or we're going to start again.
Oh, God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to hear what I had to say as well. And I wish you well with the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you're listening to us, be sure and connect with Rip. He is incredible. We thank you for being with us on the Hope to Hope conference. This is Kim White with the My Sexy Business team.
And Kristi Bridges with One Moment Wiser.
We will be back in just a few minutes for session 19.
19.
Wow. So join us. We'll be back.
Thanks.